Chapter 14. English vodka sucks. Andy wasn't typically someone who was overtly critical of commercialized photography exhibitions. Making money was of course part of being in the arts world. A person couldn't just live off of nothing. Besides, his own photography went for thousands of pounds, sometimes more. To him, he couldn't explain why this particular exhibition annoyed him so much. It wasn't the brazen sales tactics and lack of transparency around intent that frustrated him, so much as the cheap wine and gallery staff who knew next to nothing about the installation. The photographer wasn't even in attendance. This added insult to injury, especially as this was a Friday evening. To him, it signified lack of sincerity, or perhaps an overinflated ego, which meant the work was probably far more hollow than the price tag could justify. The photography itself was very high quality. It was queer portraiture with subjects immersed in Britpop-esque poses, with Tracy Emin vibes emanating from the precariously placed items around them. Colourful, yes, but not exactly that in-depth, making the subject's superficiality shine brighter than the implied meaning of the entire work of art. They were well curated and told a story, but it wasn't clear whether the photographer had simply blown up 20 Polaroid photos of people they wanted to gratify in feeding their own ego. It therefore looked more like a school yearbook of the community over a curated set of subjects. It was, in short, a popularity contest and not a set of real artworks. This kind of photography was self-indulgent and very fleeting, especially when it came to how a collector would place it within their own collection. He could tell that the people buying this art were buying their way into a faux zeitgeist that rewarded large Instagram following without adding anything of value to the cultural scene. Here, take one. He handed Freddy a glass of wine before being interrupted by an overly eager gallery intern. I can't tell whether you need it more than I do. Let's stay here for a little bit longer. They'd been there for around 20 minutes before trying to figure out how to not offend his friend who'd invited them. Andy, over here! Oh my god, it's been ages! How are you? Who's this? He heard this from across the brightly lit room, causing him to momentarily freeze. He turned around and was relieved to see that it was Isabella and not one of the usual art crowd types who seemed to float between events with a scarily dedicated frequency. Want to head over? He asked Freddy. Wine still in his mouth, Freddy signalled that he was fine to dive in at the deep end and socialise. They walked over to the corner of the gallery. Bella, nice to see you. This is Freddy. I brought him with me as he works in architecture. Could be a good fit, I thought. Oh, wow, no way. Nice to meet you, Freddy. I'm Isabella. This is my friend Arun. They both reached in for a hug, with Freddy choosing to shake Arun's hand and classily switching to Isabella's. Great exhibition. Thanks for the invite. Wine's great, by the way. Oh my god, yeah, it's like totally not cold, but it's fine. I spoke to the catering people and they said they'd sort it out, she stated, with a shocked look that told Andy everything he needed to know about her internal machinations. She was a control freak, out of her depth, but still grasping for control in a situation that didn't need to be controlled. I've got some vodka in the car, Freddy stated plainly, knowing full well that he didn't. This made Andy instantly smile inside. He knew where this was going. The irony was lost on Isabella, and her friend Aruna then spoke. English vodka? No, this will not do. We stick to wine. Isabella's Lithuanian friend had clearly entirely missed the point and not seen Freddy's joke for what it was. A joke. At least wine tastes better with this English food. Freddy smiled, adding politely, There's no vodka. Besides, the best vodka is from Vilnius, not England. Can't beat it. Wish we did have some. It's a joke, Aruna, don't worry, Isabella added in a slightly awkward way that only two best girlfriends could talk to each other in, especially when there was a slight cultural and language barrier that no one wanted to acknowledge. You're so funny, she added, being slightly oblivious to the fact that Arun was a real person, but not knowing how to deal with her Eastern European directness. So, Arun, what do you think of the photography? Andy asked. Did you get to see my show the other week? Yes, very good. I don't know why, but their clothes always come off. It reminds me of Berlin, Arun added. The Germans are better at portraits, though. More serious people. Oh my god, that's so correct. You're so right. Fotografiska had some similar stuff, though that was shot in Bavaria, I think. This looks like typical London stuff, Isabella added. That's the place near Moritzplatz, right? Andy inquired, knowing full well where it was. Correct. It is there, Arun stated, plainly, with a slightly domineering pronunciation of the word is, making everyone freeze up in a typical British way. It was hard to break the ice at this moment, especially as her statement sounded more like an accusation of missed intent or understanding. It made it slightly awkward, and no one really knew what to do. Andy had momentarily left Freddy alone with Arun and Isabella, meaning that he would have to continue the small talk alone. An unintentional tactic, but necessary in order to find more lukewarm, unoaked Chardonnay. At this moment, they heard a huge crash. It was deafening and came from the direction of the makeshift wine table. What the fuck now? Will I be spared from this dreadful wine? Andy mumbled to himself under his breath. He looked over and saw a fairly confusing sight. He saw a fairly well-dressed younger guy, possibly in his early 20s, hunched over a case of full wine bottles on the floor. How he had gotten there, it was hard to tell, but he was also surrounded by a large amount of spilled Chardonnay and a few broken wine glasses. You okay? He asked, knowing full well that whoever this was definitely wasn't just okay, and probably needed physical and mental help, in a counselling context anyway. He smiled briefly and wryly as he tried to imagine how someone could get this drunk within the first hour of an exhibition. No answer. The guy shuffled around a little bit and tried to find the ground, but failed to do so. His left arm reached for a broken glass, then abruptly changed course and found a bottle of red wine which was half empty. One bloody glass, that's all I wanted. And yes, help me. Sorry, the guy responded, looking up at Andy with the look of a wild animal caught in the midst of an entirely unnatural and foreign environment. He was wearing a tuxedo, though, which confused him somewhat. Andy was a little bewildered, but this was Chelsea, so it was hardly a huge surprise. He'd seen a lot. Sure, I'll talk to the catering people, but you might want to apologise and help me clean this up. The guy was damn handsome. That was the only reason Andy responded in a helpful way, with a firm undertone. He was a little younger than him, perhaps by 8 years or so, and must have been about 21 or so. He also had been crying, judging by the puffiness of his eyes and how they were slightly bloodshot. Come outside, let's cool off there. Alright, yeah, this place has pissed me off, he added, sheepishly. He was a little bit tipsy, but not insanely so. He briefly apologised to one of the cleaning staff and tried to help mop up the wine. I'm sorry, I'll pay for it. I'm sorry. As Andy led the extremely cute guy outside, he made a sign to Isabella, who was standing around 15 metres away on the other side of the gallery. She understood his gesture immediately and went over to get more wine for Freddy and Arun. She saw Andy leaving with the upset guy, and obviously knew to take care of Freddy whilst he was outside. He led the guy carefully outside, then looked him in the face and asked him, "Tell me, what's up? I know these things can be exhausting. Can I do anything?" He wasn't sure why he was so invested in him. He simply took pity at that moment and wanted to make sure he was okay. An entirely human gesture.